The year is 1492. After 70 days at sea, Christopher Columbus landed on an island in the Bahamas, which he named San Salvador. He claimed the lands for Spain. Over the next 10 years, he charted a viable sailing route to the Americas and initiated the Columbian Exchange, a transformative movement of plants, animals, and human populations between the Old World and the New. He ventured through the Caribbean islands, Central America, and South America. Yet the name America would not be his to claim. So who took that honor instead? Toscanelli was a Florentine mathematician, astronomer, and cosmographer who created a map of the world that showed Asia extending far to the east. He wrote a letter to Columbus explaining his ideas about sailing westward to reach Asia. Columbus used these as a guide, believing that he would reach Japan after sailing about 3,700 kilometers from the Canary Islands. However, Toscanelli had overestimated the length of Asia by 5,000 miles, and Columbus had underestimated the circumference of the Earth by 25%. Columbus's first journey was an ambitious attempt to find a western route to the East Indies, where he hoped to trade for spices and other riches. He left the port of Palos de la Frontera in Spain on the 3rd of August 1492 with 3 ships, the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. After stopping at the Canary Islands for repairs and supplies, he sailed westward into the unknown Atlantic Ocean. On the 12th of October, he sighted land in what is now the Bahamas and named it San Salvador. He believed he had reached the islands near Japan, but he was actually in a new continent that Europeans had never visited before. He explored several islands in the Caribbean Sea, such as Cuba and Hispaniola, and claimed them for Spain. He encountered the native people of these lands, whom he called Indians, thinking they were from India. He treated them with a mix of curiosity and exploitation, taking some as slaves and giving others gifts of beads and trinkets. He returned to Spain in March 1493, bringing with him some of the natives, plants, animals, and gold that he had found. He was received with great honor by the Spanish monarchs. Columbus wrote a letter to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain after his first voyage, announcing his discoveries and describing the lands and peoples he had encountered. The letter was widely circulated and translated into other languages, spreading the news of Columbus's voyage throughout Europe. The letter also served as a way for Columbus to secure the support and funding of the Spanish monarchs for his future voyages. He claimed that he had reached islands near Asia, where he expected to find gold, spices, and other riches. Columbus's second voyage was much larger and more ambitious than his first one. He left Spain in 1493 with 17 ships and about 1,200 men, including soldiers, colonists, priests, and royal officials. He returned in 1496, bringing with him some gold, slaves, and exotic plants and animals. Columbus's third voyage in 1498 was aimed at finding a passage to the Indian Ocean and verifying his theory that the lands he had discovered were part of Asia. He visited Hispaniola again, where he found the colony in chaos and rebellion. He tried to restore order and enforce his authority, but he faced opposition from the colonists and the royal officials. He was eventually arrested by Francisco de Bobadilla, a royal commissioner sent to investigate his conduct, and sent back to Spain in chains in October 1500. He was later released by the king and queen, but he lost his titles and privileges as governor of the Indies. After Columbus's second voyage, one of his captains, Ojeda, was commissioned by the Catholic monarchs to sail for Newfound Land again, which he did in 1499 with 3 caravels. He traveled with the Italian navigator Amerigo Vespucci. They explored the coast of South America from Guyana to Brazil and reached the mouth of the Orinoco River. There, Vespucci saw some native villages built on stilts over the water, which reminded him of Venice, Italy. He called the region Venezuela, which means Little Venice in Spanish. Vespucci realized that he had found a new continent based on his observations and calculations during his voyages. He noticed that the lands he explored were different from those described by Marco Polo and other travelers who had visited Asia. He measured the length of a degree of latitude near the equator and found it to be much longer than expected, indicating that he was far from the eastern coast of Asia. He compared the position of the stars and the length of the day and night in the southern hemisphere and concluded that he had crossed the equator and reached a landmass that extended far south of Asia. He wrote about his discoveries in a letter which he titled Mundus Novus, the New World. The letter was published in 1502 and widely circulated in Europe. It was the first document to suggest that the lands discovered by Columbus were not part of Asia, but a new continent. A German cartographer named Waldseemüller was impressed by Vespucci's letters and his claim that he had discovered a new continent. He decided to honor Vespucci by naming the new continent after him. In 1507, he produced a world map that showed the new continent with the name America, which was a Latinized version of Amerigo. He also wrote an introduction to the map, explaining his choice of name and praising Vespucci's achievements. The map and the introduction were widely distributed and influenced other cartographers to adopt the same name. By 1532, the name America was permanently attached to the new continents, 20 years after both Columbus and Vespucci died.